the entire roster of Lions is healthy and available for selection, which is huge and has not happened in quite some time. So there will be plenty of players to choose from. I expect some lineup rotation between the two games, so that will be interesting to watch. Then also on Saturday, the Orlando Pride played their final game of the inaugural season, and an announcement this morning, Becky Edwards announced that she will be retiring after this match. So it will be a heartfelt game for everyone involved and a farewell to Becky. So now let's jump right into the questions that were submitted before we started. All right, Steve Ellis, thanks for always tweeting in plenty of questions. Sorry we never have time to get to all of them, but our defense got crucified on Saturday, and it clearly showed Seb cannot keep up the pace. I don't get why he was not subbed. All right, so for a little background, obviously Orlando City suffered a pretty embarrassing loss against Columbus Crew on Saturday, 4-1, their worst home loss of the season. In that match, the center backs were playing together for the first time in over 3 weeks. Seb Hines and Tommy Redding were next to each other because David Mateos was out with yellow card accumulation suspension, and Jose Aja was out because he was undergoing concussion protocol for a head-to-head knock in the previous game. So Tommy and Seb did look a little out of sorts, a little slow. There were a few mistakes on the back line, and the reason, a lot of people thought that there would be a change at center back at halftime, including myself. However, there was no one on the bench to make that substitution at center back, so the best option that they had would have been to shift Luke Bowden over to center and then put in a new left back in Mikey Ambrose. Bowden played at center last year a few times in dire situations, but Christ decided not to go that route and instead put Ambrose on directly for Bowden. But the reason I think you did not see a substitution for Seb Hines then was because of the lack of depth at center back and the players that were injured. Who's up next? Alston, that's Kevin Alston, a little typo, as well, was truly awful, caught out of position so many times. Can't we bring Turner up from OCB? He's talking about Kevin Alston at right back, who Alston has been playing so much because Rafael Ramos was injured with a hamstring injury. He is healthy and could make an appearance this weekend. I would assume that he would. He's been looking great and really dynamic in training, so that might solve that issue. But overall, I think if you look at Alston's entire body of work over the past few months, I think he's performed well and he's been a solid right back. But yes, everybody looked fatigued in the last game. Everybody looked out of sorts. And Tyler Turner with OCB, I've spoken to Christ about him, and he says he has a lot of work to do. So I just don't think he thinks that Tyler is ready to come up and play for the first team yet. Who's next? OC Brazil, nice to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. Where are we gonna park / is there room in the new stadium for us? Okay, so I don't know what you mean about room. There is room for 25,500 fans in the new stadium. Whether that is enough, probably not, since they are averaging more than that this season, far more than that. But the club has said that they're happy with that capacity and they're looking forward to every game being a sellout. So if you have season tickets already, great, then there's room for you. If not, then be on your toes to snatch up tickets for each game as soon as possible, because I have a feeling they'll be going quickly. Also, parking. Parking is still being finalized, but I've been told it likely will be in current lots and could include the lots in Camping World Stadium, which is less than a mile down the road. Also, it's closer to downtown. There's a ton of parking garages downtown as well, so I don't think parking will be an issue. Who's up next? Ian F. at IF in Orlando. Why was the defense so bad Saturday? Redding had looked promising before this month. Okay, so I understand a lot of questions about the defense, and I think it wasn't just the back line. I think it was the defense as a whole. You've heard Adrian Heath and now Jason Christ kind of talk about how the issue with defense this year has been the entire team not defending as a whole together, and that's kind of what fell apart in that last game that led to such a tough loss. But Tommy Redding, yeah, he hasn't had a lot of playing time recently, so I think that had something to do with it. And like I said, he and Seb Hines hadn't played side by side for over 3 weeks. So I think it was Tommy getting a little back into the swing of things. Maybe his fitness wasn't up to par, although it looks like it is during training sessions. So I think it was just a little bit of exhaustion on the other players' parts, and maybe a little bit of lack of match fitness, and having not started and played in a few weeks for the center backs. Who do we have up? Steve Ellis again at Vanian 170 with a, quote, full squad for DC. Who do you see getting dropped? Breck is a confidence player who, up until Saturday, was improving at last. Okay, so if you didn't see my feature on Breck Shea today, I would recommend to go take a look at it online. I was able to sit down with him and just talk everything while we were in LA, and he talked about everything. He was the first to admit that it hasn't been the best year for him, but he was confident that it was going to turn around. I also spoke with Phil Rollins and Jason Kreis about, what they see in him and what type of player he is, and Rollins said that exactly, that Breck is a confidence player. He needs to feel confident, he needs to feel comfortable, he needs to feel at home, like people believe in him for him to shine the brightest. And we've seen sparks of great performances from him over the past few games. That being said, I still believe with Breck's performances recently, he's been great off the bench, and I would expect that to continue unless Jason decides to rotate the lineup significantly between Saturday's game and the game in Toronto, which could happen. He's a fan of that. He thinks that maybe the Columbus loss was because he didn't rotate the team enough between that game and the previous LA game. So we could see him in the lineup this game or in the Toronto game, but I think Breck would still be someone considered to come off the bench at this point as a super sub. On the defensive line, Aja is better. I would expect him to be back in the lineup as well, so you would probably see Hines and or Redding dropped out. But everyone else in the defensive midfield, the Gita, he is the one that is healthy as well. But I believe Kreis has been favoring Nocerino and Servando Carrasco when they're healthy and can play together. So I would expect to see that kind of stable there. I think that covers it. What's up next? Jeffrey at Volcano0201. I'm not sure if we've heard from you before. If not, thank you for writing. Evaluating the second year of Lions, soccer ball emoji, in MLS competition where the ownership is looking at to upgrade the team for better success now. Okay, so if you're talking about better success now, as in like tomorrow and in Saturday's game, they're just working with what they have right now. I think that the ownership move to try to upgrade the team for the future was the coaching move and the few player moves that they made in the summer window. So I believe that's all we're going to see. We're, I don't want to say stuck with the squad you have, but stuck with the squad that they have right now till the end of the year. As far as moving forward, players in the middle of the roster, young players, those are the areas that I believe will be strengthened moving forward. Jason said he's evaluating everyone along the way and expects to make significant changes in the offseason. So as of right now, Jason took over the team mid-season. He is working with what he has and doesn't really take the full brunt of the responsibility if they don't make the playoffs this season. So I would expect to see more in the off season and moving forward into next season. Who's next? Steve Ellis again. What is Inchy up to at the moment? Do you have contact with him and any plans to get back in the game? Okay, so Inchy, of course, is former Orlando City coach Adrian Heath. I do not have contact with him at the moment. I've spoken with him, briefly through text messages, maybe once or twice since he was fired. He reached out to me, but I did speak with Harrison Heath, his son, who is still playing for Orlando City, and Harrison said that he's kind of just taking it easy right now, evaluating his options moving forward. I think it's safe to say that, yes, he does have plans to get back in the game, whether that's in MLS or overseas. But there also have been rumors that he could be interested, or Atlanta could be interested in bringing him there for their expansion team. And there's a connection between the clubs because the former GM of Orlando City is now with Atlanta. So I don't have contact with him directly, but Harrison said he is doing better. The family's doing well overall, and they are just taking time right now to figure out the next step. Who's up? Meards Beards! We need more speed on the back line. Any chance we see a change? They are giving up game-changing plays. Yeah, so I know everybody's really concerned about the back line. I believe there will be a change this week from last week. As I said, Christ favored the combination of David Mateos and Jose Aja at center and back. And, a veteran and a big, strong young player. They worked together really well. They had great chemistry, it seemed. And in the Montreal game and the New York City game, they looked good together. And I know a lot of people had kind of, criticized Mateos earlier in the season, but it seemed like he and Ahad had worked out a relationship that was working for Orlando City. And that relationship was paused in the last match because Mateos was suspended and Aja was under concussion protocol. So I would expect to see them back together moving forward. Meards Beards again for the Pride. Do we see Edwards start and get subbed for a standing ovation, or will she play a full 90? Hope she enjoys the game. I really hope she enjoys the game too, and this is a tough call because it really is going to depend on how she feels, I think. I think Tom's going to let her play a full 90 if, she feels good and she wants to play a full 90, but I would expect her to have a standing ovation if she does get subbed off, maybe in the last few minutes of the game toward the very end, and I think it'll be really special for her either way. What do we got? Clay Goupil? How would you guys pronounce that? Goupil. At Clay Bro Pill, Florida, FL. I'm really confused, Clay. If you can let us know how to pronounce that and your handle, that'd be great. But the question is the important part. So what's the short-term plan to bolster defense for the playoffs? Okay, short-term plan to bolster defense, working on all the small minutia, the decision-making, the hustle, the communication, getting everybody on the same page. And I think that you saw that in the New York game, and you definitely saw that in the Montreal game, and it kind of faded in the LA game and took a step back again in the Columbus game. So they're going to try to get back to where they were 2 weeks ago, where it seemed like everything was clicking. They've been working on defending as a whole. You would see every Orlando City player hustle back, be in the box on defensive plays, and you hadn't seen that all season. So those are the little things that they're going to continue working on, and that's really all they can do to bolster the defense, to try to make this final playoff push. Other than that, it's just, continued fitness, rest, making sure everybody's healthy so you're not in a situation like last week where if you have some players who aren't playing 100%, you have someone that can come on and your two extra guys are not injured or suspended. Next up, K Marida at KMAD12. Is it possible to renegotiate a DP player into a non-DP slot, keep him on the team, and free up that slot, or must you trade him? Okay, so designated player rules are very complex and convoluted, but it is important to remember what the designated player slot is, and that's for a player who is getting paid above the budget, the maximum budget. So these players, yes, you can renegotiate at the end of their contracts, but typically these players are getting paid so high, so much more. If you take Kaká, for example, $7 million. The maximum budget charge is, just over $450,000. So it's difficult. Will those players accept lower salaries? You can use allocation money to buy down their budget charge, but if you paid a transfer fee for them, they still count as DP. If you trade them and the team you trade them to doesn't pay enough of their salary, it still counts as a DP on your roster. That's why Matias Perez Garcia, Orlando City has, but he still counts as a DP on San Jose's roster. And that's why Brian Roches, who's on a 6-month loan to Real España, still counts as a DP slot on Orlando City's roster. So it's really complex, it's convoluted. Yes, DPs can no longer be DPs at a certain point, but it's the types of players that you're going after for those DP slots typically are being paid so much more or had high transfer fees that it's not likely right now. Who's up next?
That's it.
That's it? Oh my goodness. We go through these quick when I'm alone. Again, Iliana Limon-Romero, my editor, who is normally with me for this, is sick today, so she could not come in. But we all are wishing her well. Looking forward, I fly out tomorrow to D.C. for the game, for Orlando City's game against D.C. We have Iliana and some other people here working the Pride game, so look for all of that information. Again, we have Orlando City and Orlando Pride news daily up at orlandosentinel.com, and you can tweet at me at OS Alicia D or at OS Lions. If you have any other questions, I'll try to answer them as much as I can. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you not next week because I'll be in Toronto, but the week after. Bye.